Ladies and gentlemen, sometimes in life we forget that the longest relationship we will ever have is with ourselves. And still we treat everyone else with kindness while speaking to our own soul. With harshness, respecting yourself begins quietly, almost invisibly, in the way you think, the way you walk, and the way you allow the world to treat you. It is not about ego, it is about dignity. It is about looking in the mirror and finally deciding that you deserve the same patience, softness, and courage that you give to others so easily. When you begin to respect yourself, your whole world shifts. When you know your worth, even when no one validates it, you begin to build your life on a foundation that cannot be shaken by opinions, rejections, or temporary silence. There comes a moment when you realize that waiting for others to approve your journey is the slowest way to destroy your spirit. People often fail to see your potential because they are limited by their own fears, their own insecurities, and their own versions of what life should look like. Sometimes they don't clap because they don't understand your dream, and sometimes they don't clap because they are too busy fighting their own battles. But none of that defines your value. Your worth is not measured by applause or likes or recognition. It lives quietly inside you. In the choices you make when no one is watching, in the courage you show when everything feels heavy, and in the dignity you maintain even when life tests you. Knowing your worth is about choosing yourself in moments when the world overlooks you. It is about trusting your heart when others doubt your vision. It is about understanding that your uniqueness is not a weakness, but your greatest asset. Many people spend years searching for approval from those who don't even understand the language of their soul. They shrink themselves to fit expectations, they silence their voice to avoid conflict, and they compromise their dreams to stay accepted. But when you truly know your worth, you stop living like a visitor in your own life. You stop chasing people who make you feel replaceable. You stop trying to earn love that should have been freely given. Instead, you begin to walk with a quiet confidence, one that doesn't demand attention, but still holds power. There is a gentle strength in standing alone when necessary, in believing in your path, even when others think you are lost. The world may not always understand your process, but that does not make your journey any less meaningful. Worth is something you carry, not something you collect. It is not built on what you achieve, but on who you become through your struggles and your healing. You learn to honor your emotions, respect your boundaries, and choose environments that nourish your growth. You start seeing rejection as redirection, not as a reflection of your lack. You start realizing that not everyone is meant to appreciate your light, and that is completely okay. Some people will only understand your value when they no longer have access to you, but you cannot allow late recognition to determine how you see yourself. Knowing your worth means you stop apologizing for wanting a better life. You stop minimizing your dreams so others feel comfortable around you. You stop settling for half efforts, half love, and half respect. You begin to understand that your energy is precious and where you place it shapes your destiny. You start protecting your time and your mental space because you finally realize that your life moves in the direction of what you tolerate. You also learn to forgive yourself for the times you forgot your worth, for the moments you allowed disrespect, for the days you stayed where you should have left. Those experiences taught you what you deserve and what you must never accept again. They were lessons, not failures, stepping stones that brought you closer to understanding who you are and who you are becoming. And knowing your worth quietly transforms the way you show up in the world. You start carrying yourself differently, not with arrogance, but with clarity. You no longer need to prove anything, and you no longer chase anything that requires you to lose yourself. You simply stay true to your path, knowing that what is meant for you will find you when you refuse to settle. Setting boundaries without feeling guilty begins with understanding that your time, energy, and emotional space are not unlimited resources, and treating them as such is an act of self-respect. Many of us grow up believing that being a good person means being available for everyone. Saying yes even when our heart is tired, and stretching ourselves until we break just to avoid disappointing others. This habit slowly teaches the world that our needs are optional, that our comfort can be compromised, and that our presence can be demanded instead of earned. But boundaries are not walls, they are doors. They do not disconnect you from people. They protect your connection with yourself. Without boundaries, you end up living a life that feels borrowed, constantly adjusting yourself to fit situations that drain you, and pretending you are okay when your inner world is collapsing. Learning to set boundaries means learning to choose yourself without apologizing for it. There is a deep fear hidden behind the inability to say no. We fear losing people. We fear being misunderstood. We fear being labeled as rude or selfish. But the truth is, people who benefit from your lack of boundaries will always call your clarity selfish. The moment you begin to honor your limits, the dynamics around you change. Some relationships will adjust, some will resist, and some may fall away. This is not a sign that you are wrong. It is a sign that your life is making space for healthier connections. Boundaries reveal who genuinely values you and who only values your compliance. When you learn to say no without guilt, you regain ownership of your life, your schedule, and your emotional well-being. You start showing the world that your comfort matters, your time matters, and your feelings deserve consideration. Boundaries are also a reflection of what you believe you deserve. When you don't have them, you unconsciously send a message that you are willing to tolerate anything, even if it hurts you. But when you establish clear limits, you teach people how to treat you. You teach them that your kindness is not to be abused, that your silence is not a sign of acceptance, and that your presence is not guaranteed when you are disrespected. And this teaching is not done through anger or aggression, but through calm consistency. You don't need to shout to create boundaries. You simply need to remain firm. When something doesn't align with your peace or your values, you learn to step back. When someone crosses a line, you learn to address it instead of swallowing your feelings. This shift creates space in your life for clarity, authenticity, and inner balance. At first, guilt will show up every time you enforce a boundary. You will question whether you are being too harsh. You will wonder if you hurt someone's feelings. You might feel a familiar pull to go back, to compromise again, to shrink yourself so others remain comfortable. But guilt is not a sign that you are wrong. It is a sign that you are finally rewriting old patterns. You are unlearning years of people-pleasing, years of emotional self-abandonment, and years of believing that your needs are secondary. With time, you begin to understand that protecting your energy is not selfishness, it is emotional maturity. You start realizing that the relationships meant for you will not crumble because you chose to honor your limits. They will instead grow stronger, more respectful, and more honest. Setting boundaries without guilt also teaches you the power of intentional living. You stop saying yes automatically and begin asking yourself whether something aligns with your priorities, your goals, and your emotional well-being. You start surrounding yourself with people who support your growth rather than drain it. You allow yourself to rest without feeling ashamed, to disconnect when overwhelmed, and to walk away from situations that no longer serve your journey. Boundaries become your quiet protection, your emotional compass, and your way of telling the world that you finally value yourself enough to choose peace over pressure and authenticity over approval. Speaking to yourself with kindness, not judgment, begins with noticing the silent conversations happening inside your mind every single day. Most people grow up learning how to comfort others, how to motivate them, how to speak gently when someone is hurting, but they never learn how to offer that same softness to themselves. Instead, the inner voice becomes a harsh critic, quick to point out flaws, mistakes, and weaknesses. It becomes a voice that keeps reminding you of what went wrong instead of what you survived, what you still have, and what you are capable of becoming. When this inner dialogue remains unchallenged, it shapes the way you see yourself, the way you walk into rooms, the way you dream, and the way you allow others to treat you. Changing this voice does not require perfection. It requires awareness. It requires pausing long enough to ask yourself whether the words you are speaking internally are lifting you or damaging you. When you begin replacing judgment with kindness, you slowly rebuild the relationship you have with yourself. You stop treating your failures as proof that you are undeserving, and you start seeing them as evidence that you were brave enough to try. You stop attacking yourself for feeling lost or slow or confused, and instead you offer understanding, reminding yourself that growth is not a straight path. Speaking with kindness transforms the way you experience challenges. Instead of telling yourself, "I always mess things up," you start saying, "I am learning, and it's okay to take time." Instead of thinking, "I am not enough," you begin whispering, "I am becoming." These gentle shifts may sound simple, but they carry the power to reshape your entire emotional landscape. The voice you use with yourself becomes the foundation of your confidence, your resilience, and your inner peace. A kind inner voice also allows you to take responsibility without destroying yourself in the process. Mistakes become lessons rather than life sentences. You learn to admit where you went wrong without attaching shame to your identity. You no longer see yourself as broken, but as someone who is constantly evolving. And the more compassion you offer to yourself, the more clarity you gain. Kindness does not mean excusing harmful patterns. It means addressing them without cruelty. It means holding yourself accountable with love instead of fear. This balance between responsibility and compassion is what strengthens your character and helps you keep moving forward even on the days when everything feels heavy. The way you speak to yourself influences the quality of your life more than any external voice ever could. You could receive praise from the whole world, but if your inner voice is filled with judgment, you will still feel small. You could meet people who believe in you, but if you don't speak to yourself with that same belief, their words will never feel real. Kindness is not about pretending everything is perfect. It is about choosing words that help you grow instead of words that drown you in self-doubt. It is about recognizing that you deserve encouragement too. You deserve patience. You deserve the same love you keep giving to others. Over time, as you continue practicing gentle self-talk, you begin to notice subtle changes. Decisions feel easier because you trust yourself more. Risks feel less frightening because you know you won't punish yourself if things don't go exactly as planned. Relationships become healthier because you no longer rely on others to define your value. You stop tolerating disrespect because your inner world no longer speaks to you in the language of disrespect. When your internal voice becomes a safe place, the world outside loses its ability to break you as easily. You walk differently, breathe differently, and show up differently because the person inside you is finally on your side. Speaking to yourself with kindness is one of the greatest acts of self-care because it allows you to live with peace rather than pressure. It frees your mind from the constant weight of self-criticism and creates space for creativity, courage, and emotional freedom. It teaches you that you can correct yourself without hating yourself, improve without insulting yourself, and grow without tearing yourself apart. Walking away from anything that disrespects your peace is not an act of weakness. It is an act of deep self-understanding. It means you finally recognize that your inner calm is not something you can afford to lose just to keep someone else comfortable. Most people spend years tolerating situations, relationships, and environments that drain their energy because they fear being alone, or they fear judgment, or they fear the unknown. They stay in places where their voice is ignored, where their efforts go unnoticed, and where their presence is taken for granted. They convince themselves that endurance is strength, but strength also exists in the quiet decision to step away. Choosing peace is not running away from life. It is walking toward a healthier version of yours. Walking away becomes easier when you realize how expensive it is to stay where you are not valued. Every day spent in disrespect steals a little more of your clarity, your confidence, and your emotional stability. You begin to doubt your worth, question your instincts, and internalize negativity that was never yours to carry. Your mind becomes restless, your heart becomes heavy, and your spirit becomes exhausted. Peace is not just the absence of chaos, it is the presence of balance. It is the ability to wake up without dread, to breathe without tension, to speak without fear of being dismissed. When something consistently disrupts that balance, it becomes a clear signal that you must protect yourself by distancing yourself. There is a certain courage required to walk away, because it often means letting go of what is familiar. Human beings cling to familiarity, even when it hurts, simply because the unknown feels intimidating. But staying in a place that disrespects your peace eventually costs more than anything the unknown could ever take from you. Peace creates space for clarity, and clarity allows you to rebuild when you remove yourself from toxic environments. You begin to hear your own thoughts again. You begin